So welcome to today's edition, Thanksgiving edition of Cooking with Robin Daumit, and I will turn it over to Robin. And thanks very much for being here.
Hi, I'm Robin Daumit. Some of you know me as a native Annapolitan, some through my food blog, Whisk and Dine, my culinary playground. Others have cheered me on through some of the Food Network competitions that I've done, and most recently a series with PBS. And then there are others of you who don't have a clue who I am. But I hope to be able to fan the flames of your food passion while you're here today. The holiday season that we wait for all year is now here. And I think there'll be more pies baked this week than there are the entire year. And so I thought it would be fun to share with you one of my favorite pie crust hacks. I have opted not to do whole pies anymore because I don't like them half cut and crumbs everywhere. And so I have something new, something I really like, and it's great for people who don't even like to bake. I like individual servings of pies. We've got pumpkin pies, we've got a bourbon pecan pie, but there's a special way that I do this. And it's not just using a fancy bottomless removable tart pan that's very costly. There's another hack, another trick. It's affordable and it's fun, and you probably already have it in your house. They're mason jar lids. I'm going to show you how you can make all kinds of pies, pie crusts that are rollable, pie crusts that you don't have to roll, you just press the dough into these and put whatever filling you want inside. It also works great for quiche when you've got a full crowd coming to spend the night and you want to serve them something in the morning you don't have to get up early to cook for. So then you would just use a savory crust. Canning jars. I'm sure we all have them. I know I store lots of things in them. Sometimes when I'm in the kitchen cooking, I drink out of them. But they're just lids that have a seal in the top. And you just flip it over. So it becomes a tart pan. And the seal in the bottom keeps liquid from draining through or slipping out the sides. That's all you need for doing lots and lots of pies. But since it's also pumpkin season, I want to share with you another trick I have with pumpkin spice, which actually has nothing to do with pumpkin, because pumpkin, I think, doesn't have a lot of flavor. And so I think it needs a lot of help. And so here we are with the seasonal pumpkin spice, which is also very costly this time of year. But I would bet you have all the ingredients already in your pantry, from that item you bought to just make one recipe and then it sits there. So here, I'm going to go ahead and mix up a pumpkin pie spice for you. It's cinnamon, nutmeg, cardamom, cloves, ginger, and allspice. You can put as much or little as you want in them because some people like more cinnamon, less ginger. Sometimes I even add a little cayenne pepper in mine when I want a little extra heat. Room so you can see what I'm doing here. It couldn't be easier. I'm just going to empty the cinnamon, nutmeg, cardamom, cloves, ginger, and allspice. You can also put dried orange rinds in the mix, which you'll see oftentimes is what's in the pumpkin spice mix. But I like to use the orange in some of my recipe for the crust. So you'll see how I go about using that. Now we have pumpkin spice that's going to go in one of our pie crusts. They're here, so I know where it is.
Robin, we have a question. Was that equal portions of the spices?
No, on my blog, you will see the recipe for it, but I find that most people prefer a lot of cinnamon and maybe less of some of the other ingredients. So what makes it nice when you make the spice mix yourself is you can add a lot or a little of whatever is your favorite. Usually cinnamon is the predominant ingredient.
And someone else had asked if the lids had to be new with a new seal. I took the liberty of saying just clean. Is that correct?
That's great. And they clean up in the dishwasher, but I wouldn't run it on a long cycle because sometimes they'll start to warp. They also will rust easily on the insides because you see it's just metal. But I've had these for probably 5 or 6 years. I just wash them and dry them and use them over again. The other, a really good way to make sure that they don't rust is that if you wash them and put them on a cookie sheet and just pop them in the oven that's off, but you use for making your pies, that'll help to dry it off really well. So they hold up a long time.
Thank you.
All right, let's make a pie crust. I use a food processor because it's fast. And that's usually what I would use to make most of my pie crusts. It's not what my mother did, and she was a fabulous pie maker. We do it the old-fashioned way where she would put the butter and flour in here and she would use a pastry cutter and she would work the dough. Maybe I worked the dough too much, but it's quicker. All right, we don't have a lot of ingredients that will go in this, but the recipe for the pie crust again is on Whisk and Dine. Set these out for here. We're going to be using 1.5 cups flour, a little sprinkle of cinnamon, a nice healthy tablespoon scoop of our spice that we just mixed, a little drizzle of water, and that's it.
Robin, back to that spice mix. A viewer says that nutmeg is not mentioned on the recipe, but apparently you put it in the spice mix. Do you know how much? So you
can add what you want, or you can take away what you want. It's nice to have at least 4 or 5 different spices in there, but you can certainly add more. Again, you can use dried orange rinds in there, which I didn't put in there because I was going to use the dried orange rinds to place on top of one of the pumpkins or pumpkin pie.
Nice.
All right, let's. Okay, we want to start off with whole butter. It's about 6 tablespoons whole butter. And I think just about a tablespoon of sugar. And let's use about a tablespoon of our spice. Smells like the holidays. It smells like a good candle. I have measured out 1.5 cups of just all-purpose flour. And then we're going to measure up an egg with just a tablespoon of water. You can add more if you need it, or add more flour if you need it. But you'll see the dough comes together very quickly. Got a little bit of a mix so it doesn't go into the food processor in a big plop. All right. I use salted butter, so you don't have to add salt to it, but if you don't use salted butter, you can add salt to it or leave the salt off altogether. Salt does make sweet things taste a little sweeter. You don't need much, you just need a little. At first, I'm just looking to mix all of the flour and the butter together. And now we're going to add the liquid, and it should come together pretty quickly. Peek and see how it's doing in here. This is where my mom was very patient to do this by hand. I'm not. I went through 3 food processors when I was doing the PBS job. So I worked them hard. I'm going to add just a tiny little bit more water at a time until I see the consistency's right. It could be like a teaspoon at a time until you see it come together. And there it is. Once it comes together in a ball, it's moldable. You can work with it.
Robin, a viewer says they've never used egg in pie crust before, and she's wondering, what does this add?
I don't ever make a pie crust without eggs. Sometimes I just use egg whites, but it helps to bind the crust together. I didn't grow up using vegetable shortening in my pie crust. I used butter. So I find that it helps to bind the flour, the butter, and everything together. And when it bakes, it gives it a richer texture, I think, taste to it.
Thank you.
All right. Do I need to let you in? There we are. Okay. Now you can see that the texture, it's got a nice texture. It's going to work to stay together when I roll it out. I work on parchment paper all the time because it makes cleanup a whole lot easier. We're just going to add a little bit of flour here. Now, I wanted to mention to you a little bit about working with the lids. Let's see where we have that. Here it is. I'm going to be using a biscuit cutter that's about the same size as the opening to the lid. But we still want the crust to come up to the sides. So I find you can either measure it with a larger round cutter, which usually comes out to be about 4 inches, or you can roll the pastry out so it's about 1/4 of an inch thick, and then we're going to work it up to sides. here for the next one. All right. You don't want too much flour because you want it to stay moist. I'm not going to do all 8, but you will get 8 out of this pie crust. So I'm going to give you a demonstration on just one. Okay. Now we're just going to press out one. And you can see the thickness. It's about 1/4 of an inch. And we're going to make sure that you have the rubber edge down. And we're going to, you want to see the writing on the top. So we're going to place the pastry in there. And all we're going to do is with our thumbs from the center out and towards the sides, we're going to press it up until we get it up on the sides, press the corners. And then you can go ahead and crimp the edges. And also on a pumpkin pie, they're open-faced. And I find that they're aesthetically not as pretty as many other pies I guess we could do where we put things on top of it. So I like to put a press of some type of a cookie cutter or something on top. So I will go ahead and press out a second. That way I've got a little acorn to place on top of it. That is really all we need for the pumpkin. We will put the filling in. In fact, I think I'm going to put it in now for you because I want to show you the no roll pie. We don't need this because we're not going to roll the next one. I have a pumpkin pie filling. Which again, the recipe is at Whisk and Dine. It is pumpkin spice, pumpkin. It was home roasted, but it works just as fine when you buy the pumpkin in a can. So we're just gonna put some of the filling in, not too far up to the top, because we need to drop that little cookie in there. It's really just your pie crust. And when it bakes, you end up with a really pretty topping, which looks a little prettier than just a naked pumpkin pie with nothing on top except maybe tons of whipped cream, which you can add. Okay. I'm going to set the pumpkin aside while we do the other pie crust. Yeah, I'm going to use the same. Wipe out the side. And put my blade back in. And I'm going to get rid of this one and hide it for later, and then I'll go ahead and roll the rest of it out. I don't want to bore you by having you have to watch all the rest of them. Okay. The next pie crust. I'm a pie and cookie eater. I prefer both of those to cakes. So I created this pie crust that to me is really a lot like a cookie. And it can be gluten-free easily. We're going to have a cup of crushed pecans. That's what's going to go in there first. And then we have our cold butter, 6 tablespoons, cold butter. And then a little bit of sugar. Not quite a full tablespoon. And you can add the pumpkin spice to that as well. Or you can just put cinnamon in this one. So I'm going to add a little bit of the pumpkin spice so you have it. This is what I love in a pie crust. This is crushed oat flour. It's just crushed oats. So you make your own flour out of crushed oats. It's a cup of the oat flour, which makes it gluten-free. Now, for the last bit to pull it together, we need a little bit more flour, and this is only a half a cup. And here's where you can swap this up for a gluten-free flour. You don't have to use regular all-purpose flour. Yeah, we're going to give that just a little chop, and then I'll add the liquid. It brings it together. When I bake, I really just think about things being dry ingredients and wet ingredients and what you need of each, and then you bring them together, and it usually turns into something wonderful. For our wet ingredient, we're going to use, again, another egg, 1 full egg. Just a little bit of orange juice, probably about maybe 2 teaspoons. You can always add more if it's dry and you need more. And then with it running, we're just going to pour the liquid in. And that comes together quickly. That smells good. It's a little wet. I think I'm going to add just a little more flour to this one, because I want it to stick to the pan and not my hands. So let's add just a little more flour. I think a lot of times I just eyeball things until they look right to me. When I make my recipes that are on my blog, I'm very precise about the measurements. So I'm usually with a pencil and pen when I'm cooking. So they've been tried and tested on the blog. Yeah, I want a little bit more, still like a little bit wet. Right. Now for this one, we're not going to roll it out. Well, we're going to roll it into a log is what we're going to do. I'm going to do that just with their hands. This is a wonderful pie to make for people who hate to bake, because it really, all you need is just to make sure that the consistency of the pie crust, if you pinch it, you can leave an indentation. That's all you need. If it's too dry, it'll crumble. If it's too wet, it's going to stick to your fingers, which it's not. You'll see just a little bit of butters on my hands. All right. And from there, we're just going to roll it out into a log. Now, this can be done in advance and rolled up in the paper and put in your refrigerator for when you're ready to bake these. Also, I love to make my crusts way ahead of time and freeze them, because they stack beautifully in a zip baggie and I can get to them when I need them. Okay. I will usually get 8 cuttings out of here, and that works perfect for the cups. So we'll just work with the center one. That's going to go inside of here. And the same thing, press it down, up the sides. Make sure you don't have any holes where you see the bottom of the tin, because you don't want your lovely filling to stick. As you see it's a little bit, you see it when it shows like that, you want to make sure you don't see it silver there. So press it back down. It's kind of like working with Play-Doh. Shape your edges, crimp them. I don't know, I have to put it down to crimp it, but I do. Give it a little shape. Yeah. And this is now ready for filling. Let me get this one out of the way. So I can show you how this one is one of my, if you watched the PBS program and you watched it close to it was episode 5, where I made a pie crust. I made a tahini pie on the show. And I lost it. And yes, I cried and all of that, because my sisters and I grew up with a mom who makes fabulous pies. And when she passed, none of her recipes were written down. So we've been trying to figure out what goes in them by making them up ourselves as we go along. And so this was one of her famous pies, was a pecan pie. And none of us make it the way she did. So now I'm just calling this Grandma's bourbon pecan pie. And again, the mixture for that, I made this ahead of time. You can see how caramely it looks. The recipe for the filling for this, again, is on my blog. Where you're filling in, leave room for some nuts. This filling is pretty much maple syrup, bourbon, butter, and eggs.
Just curious how much room you left for the nuts. How close are you to the top of the crust?
Maybe 1/8 of an inch from the top.
Okay.
And I have just a few crushed nuts I'm going to put in. And then I always like to top it off with a whole nut on the top. That way you can see what they're getting. And those are ready to go into the oven and bake, usually about 30 minutes, 25 to 30 minutes in these lids. Is about all it needs. I always line the pan with parchment paper in case you get it to leak, but I've never had. You can see it's been sitting, the pumpkin pie filling's been sitting there. Nothing ever leaks out. And they bake quickly. I usually put it in a 350-degree oven, and 30 minutes later, it's done. That's 2 pies now. You've got 16 pies from what I just have given you, 16 little miniature pies already ready for your holiday guests.
You're getting some nice comments in the chat. Someone says they are adorable, and the acorn got a lot, cookie cutter got a lot of love. One other person said she decorates her pumpkin pie just with a sprinkle of cinnamon, but another thought there. Yeah.
There's a couple of, I think that decorating any of your pies, no matter what they are, is really a matter of preference, what you like, what you want. Sometimes you want ice cream, sometimes you want whipped cream. I think it's really just a matter of taste. On my pumpkin pie, oftentimes I will put just a little dollop of mascarpone. Even though it's going to cover up my beautiful little acorn. I have some of the pies that I didn't. Here's one. This is an uglier one. This one I only put a circle on the top. So it's, to me, it's not quite as pretty as the acorn one, but you can dress it up and put a little dollop of mascarpone on the top. And I've got orange rinds that I cut very thin and twist them around a bamboo stick and just place that on the top. And it's not so ugly anymore. There you have it. I think that you'll find that by using this method of making pie crust, if you look on my blog, I have so many types of tarts that I have used this method of making a pie crust out of. I love to do quiches for the holidays when the house is filled with family, and I do a savory herb crust inside the tin. And that way you can mix up different fillings, people who don't want dairy or people who don't want meat. And that way you can make up just a platter of different quiche using these small, and you don't feel quite so guilty when you've only got a 3 or 4 bite pie. It's so good.
I think she's speaking for all of us. Gloria says, so festive and elegant, Robin, you make it look so easy.
I like to cook with ingredients that are as close to being healthy as possible, which is why I love the pecan pie crust, because it's oats, nuts. It tastes like a cookie. That's good. I can taste all the pecan or the pie spice in there.
Yeah. So we have 2 questions. The one from a while back was, would you be able to provide us the list of and amounts of the spices for the spice mix you used today, even though you said it's on your website, but then you mentioned the
I can guess because I've made it so many times. I can tell you that when I mix it to have it in a jar, and I only made enough for today to work with, I will go with 3 tablespoons of cinnamon, 1 tablespoon of ginger, a half a teaspoon of some of the very strong ones like clove, allspice, a whole teaspoon of cardamom. What did I leave out?
a nutmeg, I believe.
Probably a half teaspoon of nutmeg. It just depends on your taste, because some spices are much more pungent than others. And if you really like your spice mix to be very spicy, you may want more clove in yours, because clove is very strong. I also like cayenne pepper in mine, because I will use that mix to do something with gingerbread cookies for the holidays, and I like that extra pepper.
Okay, I was trying to write all that down, and I think I missed the spice that came. You said cinnamon, ginger, cloves, allspice, and was it cardamom? Was that
Cardamom? Yeah.
it? Was okay, and then the nutmeg. All right, I will try to put that in the chat. And we also had a question: was it your mom who gave you your love for cooking?
We have a very large family. We all cook. My brother-in-law has Ken's Creative Kitchen, and he and my mom probably ignited the love for cooking and entertaining for our entire family. So I would say yes, she probably was the greatest inspiration. One of my sons is a professional chef for Ken's Creative Kitchen, and each of us have taken our personal tastes for culinary, maybe from our travels in the world or whatever. And we have each gone off in our own branches of doing what we like in our taste of cooking. My mom she never really presented food in a glamorous, pretty way. It just always tasted good. And I wanted to learn more about how to present food that looked magazine cover worthy. And so I dabbled a little bit more in that and learned from my brother-in-law and from my son. So, yeah.
And thank you. The next question is, what kind of oats did you use for the oat flour?
They're just rolled oats, just dry rolled oats. And then I just put them in the food processor and grind them until they're all the way down to powder. And that's also what I do with all of my nuts. I make all of my nut flour that way, by grinding it until it turns into a powder, which is also how you make oat milk. So that way you get pure oat milk by just grinding the flour, letting it steep in 3 cups of water, and an hour later you just squeeze all of the milk out of it. It's much more cost effective than buying it already ground. All you need is a processor.
Okay. And Helen asks, does it make a difference what type of flour? Could you use almond flour instead of oats?
Well, in the pecan pie, I had crushed pecans. So this pie is loaded with crushed pecans instead of crushed almonds. So I call this pecan flour. If you were to use almond flour with the pecan flour, I don't think that you would have enough to bind it together. So by using the oat flour, or you could use rice flour or a variety of other types of flour. If you were going to use almond flour, you'd be making an almond tart. And you would just swap out the pecan flour for an almond flour.
Okay. Any other questions out there? Did I miss any?
I hope if there's anything that you enjoyed about learning from my kitchen, you'll come back December the 7th. I'm going to be doing something for the holidays with eggnog. I grew up with eggnog until I got old enough to discover that it was raw eggs, and then I stopped drinking it. So now I have created an eggnog that has cooked eggs. I call it a deconstructed eggnog. And then once I have the eggnog, I'm going to be making a muffin for you for the holidays with a big meringue on top of it. So I hope you'll be back to watch that. Also, if you want to subscribe to my blog, it's usually the first thing at the top of the blog. That way we can stay in touch, and I can let you know when there's cooking classes coming out or when I put out a new recipe, or you can ask me questions that way too.
Thank you. I've put the link to the blog in the chat a couple times, but I can put it in again. But what I just added to the chat, Robin, can you tell us more about the program you're doing to benefit the foundation and about your new book?
I'm going to grab it. I have it right over here.
Okay. All right, good. While Robin's getting her book and comes back to tell us about that event, please take a look in the chat. There is a link for the program survey, and we hope you can open it now, but after we've logged off, if you could please fill that out and give us any suggestions for future programs as well. All right, Robin, go ahead.
This is my most recent publication. It's called My Muffin Madness, and there's 52 recipes in here, and I can promise you there's not another muffin cookbook like it on the planet. I have baklava muffins, I have spanakopita muffins, I have pizza muffins and cheeseburger muffins, and a whole variety of sweet and savory muffins, along with some that have a healthy twist that some of you might not be aware of, and they're in there too. So I'm going to be working with the library, and this will be shared with each member who comes to the event on December the 3rd. And I will be autographing these for you. And if you're there, I can answer all kinds of questions about creating cookbooks, which this one is my second one. This one was a lot of fun. And I can get to know you a little bit better too. This is a s'mores muffin. Come on, you gotta have a s'mores muffin, whether it's at your fireplace or in the middle of summer out by your pool.
Thank you very much. I just put the link for the December 7th program in the chat as well. But the link was already just previous for your foundation program here at the Bush Annapolis Library. We're all looking forward to that. And a number of nice comments are coming in about how much people have enjoyed today's program. And one person especially says that she likes it's visually impressive yet simple to make. So.
And it should be. You should be able to put something out for your guests or your family, and you shouldn't have to be the last one leaving the kitchen. So you want to do a lot of these things ahead of time so you can enjoy the people you've invited over.
Right. So a lot of thanks. Any other questions out there? No? Oh, Rose asks, where can we buy the book?
Amazon. My Muffin Madness on Amazon. You'll find the link to it also through my blog.
Okay. Maybe bookshop.org too. I always like to put in a plug for them, for people who want to stay away from Amazon a little bit. That's a bookseller that benefits local bookstores. So, yeah.
No, I will look into that. Okay. It takes time to get your book in places where you want it to go. Even Barnes and Noble, I'm in the process of working with them as well. And I will be donating some of these to the library if you want to be able to check it out from there.
Okay. So Kim says that this was so great. Thank you so much. You've inspired our 8-year-old to make these today.
Well, I have 3 grandchildren, and they all 3 are really good in the kitchen. The youngest is 6 and the oldest is almost 12, and they've all been cooking because they watch us cook.
Good way to do it. So, all right. Our other tech hosts did a great job. And if I'm forgetting anything, or Gloria, if you have anything you want to say, people are saying they're coming on December 3rd, so that's good. And anything else? Yes, someone has commented about December 3rd being in person and a great time to get to meet you in person. So yes, yeah. So, all right. Well, again, please, a big thank you to Robin for your sharing your expertise. And yes, you did make it look easy, but still very, very special. And someone has thanked you for supporting our local library system, and we all are very grateful for that. Just what we have some other, of course, Robin's upcoming programs, but we have other library programs, cooking programs that you can find in our Happenings magazine or on our website. So I hope we piqued your interest today, and that we'll see you at many programs in the future. Let's see, one more question came in. Could you blind bake these crusts if you wanted to put in a cold filling?
Yes. Yes. You know, you just need to put beans or something in there to hold it down so they don't rise up. That's a great way to put in a cold, yes, you're right. Actually, ice cream would be nice in this one, the pecan crust. You bake it up ahead of time so it's ready, and then you just put some ice cream in there and sprinkle some pecans on the top.
Yum. All right. Well, looks like the questions have slowed down and everyone's just drooling like me, and we're all happy. So we really appreciate you sharing your talents with us today, and look forward to seeing you in the future.
In your home. I'm thankful that you had me in your home. Thanks for joining me.
All right. Well, take care, everyone. Please be sure to do the program survey, and we'll see you at our another cooking or other library program.
Thank you.
Thank you.